Hi, I'm Marlo Thomas, and I'm delighted to be a part of today's Good Day Show.
Fine lady. Her name is Marlo Thomas. She gave the most inspiring talk about the equality of women and our role today. After she talked, I sat down with her, and I began by asking her about her hit Emmy Award-winning series, Free to Be You and Me, and where her commitment to equality comes from.
Well, a desire to have it myself. You know, I mean, I've always wanted to be free myself. I've always wanted to express myself the way I wanted to express myself, not in the limitation of somebody else's definition. And I think I wanted to say that to children, because I don't think we got it as children. I mean, every storybook said that a man would, you know, the prince would come and kiss you and everything would be all right, pretty much. But nobody said you can be anything you want to be. You could be president, you could be an astronaut, you know. We had no Sally Ride in our generation. So I think it's a message you need to say to boys and girls all the time, that don't be limited by what somebody says you can be.
And yet, both you and your sister Terry, your family seems to be growing. Even your mother. Your mother
Yes.
is a great force in Hollywood and with the giving kind of
Yes.
community. Didn't you get that message when you were a kid?
No, it was always within the family, you know, what you would contribute back to the family, rather what you would just take for yourself in terms of your work, you know, in terms of maybe you're not that, you know, the person defined in that family. You're not the same person as the family defines you. To have the strength to say, what is my definition? You know, as Phil and I have done with our marriage, you know, the definition of conventional, traditional marriage is not our definition at all.
What is yours?
Is that the work for both people is very important. And that I was raised to believe that a man's work is very important, the center of his ego and all these things. But I never learned that about women. And from my husband and I, we've had to realize that my work is like his work.
Well, but do you come together then, Marlo, with, in one sense, as two business people coming together, and then another sense, loving each other and committed to each other? Or can
Well,
you
it's
even
not about
separate?
business people at all. It's about people who love each other. If you love someone, you want the best for them. And we women have been trained to do that. We enable men to get what they want out of life. We enable the children to get what they want out of life. We encourage, my mother certainly did. We feed them, we keep them well, we clothe them. But we haven't been trained to do that for women. You know, women's jobs very often are an inconvenience to the family. You know, why didn't mother come home earlier? Why didn't my wife pick up my clothes at the cleaners? Or whatever it is. Or the fact that a wife, God forbid, has to go to a different city to do her job. That's a lot. Men have not, men and women together have not looked at with respect at women's work. And I mean, for years we didn't even think homemakers were working at home. We never even looked upon that as work. You know, so that when a woman gets a divorce, she has to like fight for alimony as if she didn't contribute, and she did contribute. She's entitled to as much as her husband is.
Well, as you speak today before 2,000 women attending this wonderful function for New England Villages, you said that you should not define yourself by what you do.
Right.
Explain.
Well, by who you are, you know, what kind of a person you are, what you want out of life without the stereotyping of your job definition. I mean, for years, actresses were considered dumb. It's a stereotype. I'm not dumb. I mean, Jane Fonda isn't dumb. Lots and lots of actors and actresses are not dumb one bit. But because we were seen as dumb, we were treated that way. It was a stereotype thing. For example, that housewives weren't working. That's another stereotype. That's not true. So if you define people by the stereotype of what their job is, then you can look upon them in this culture as, you know, you can dismiss them. You can.
You're a very feminine woman, and I think in the beginning, I don't know whether you agree or not, but my own perception is that it wasn't always the feminine woman standing up and speaking for the feminist movement. You must have great impact because you're feminine, but when did all of this begin to rise up in you? When did you become a feminist?
I think when I did That Girl, I became an official feminist. I mean, I didn't realize that I was always a feminist. I think I was born a feminist, but I didn't realize it. When I did That Girl, I was getting mail from females all over the country, grandmothers, daughters, middle-aged women, everyone saying, you know, oh, don't marry Donald and become an actress. And they were really taking a tremendous interest in it. And they would write me and say, I wish I had done this, or my husband beats me, or I'm pregnant, I can't tell my father. I mean, all these things. I had become almost a clearinghouse for female problems. And at that time, I got into kind of a networking. You know, I'd write women back and say, there's a place you can go if your husband beats you, or there's a place you can go if you're pregnant, and so forth and so on, in your area. And I got really involved, and it was at the beginning of my feminism, really. Because I identify with women. I think no matter where I go, when I sit down with another woman, I'm home. I know exactly what she's about. She knows what I'm about. The fact that I'm wearing more makeup, or I have more money, or she's got 7 children and I don't, whatever it is, basically we are coming from a culture that treats us all exactly the same and finds ways in which to treat us the same.
If you meet a woman who is not a feminist, doesn't believe as you do you
Yes.
cram it down her throat, or do you encourage her to talk about it?
Yeah, well, I don't cram it down, anybody's throat. I mean, first of all, I want to convert people, and you don't convert anybody by beating them up.
Sure don't.
You know, I mean, we've learned that in El Salvador, so we know that. But I think I do like to understand why. You know, when a woman says, I am not a feminist, or I am not for equal rights for women, I want to know why. Because in what other group? The Jews, the Christians, the Italians, the Lebanese, the Irish, who else? The blacks? What other group would be against their own rights?